Are you ready to be inspired? I'm excited to bring our keynote speaker to the stage. A podcast host, author, and advisor, Ryan Hawk is the host of the Learning Leader Show. He's recorded more than 500 episodes over the past 8 years. Forbes called his podcast the most dynamic leadership podcast around, and Inc. magazine said it's one of the 5 podcasts to make you a smarter leader. Ryan is the author of 3 books, Welcome to Management, The Pursuit of Excellence, and The Score That Matters. Each contain lessons in leadership and cover topics that range from the uncommon behaviors of the most productive leaders to discovering ways to go from a top performer to an excellent leader. Ryan worked in corporate America for 12 years. He started as an entry-level sales rep and worked his way to manager, director, and ultimately VP of sales for a multi-billion-dollar company. When he's not recording podcasts or writing books, Ryan helps professionals be more effective through his leadership circles, one-on-one advising, and teaching in his online academy. Ryan has delivered hundreds of keynote speeches on leadership and performance excellence all over the world, and he's here with us today to share his wisdom and inspire all of us to be better leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ryan Hawk.
Thank you, man. That was awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Wow, what a place. This is awesome. I really appreciate you guys having me. I'll give you a little bit of lay of the land, what we'll do together. I would urge you initially to get out something to write with because you're going to do a little bit of work, and some of you are going to get a chance to share. I love the idea of team learning through dialogue, so we're going to do a little bit about that. But I'll do a little bit of a teach first. Then I'll share with you, then you're going to share with us so that when you leave here, at least in my session for sure, you will have done some work. That's really important to me, that you have some practical application, some things that you're going to do. So get that ready to go now. We won't do that yet. As Mike mentioned, I've recorded with 570 of the most effective leaders in the world over the past 9 years. And what I'm trying to do is uncover the uncommon commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time. And I try to chase my curiosity and obsessions with great rigor, ask good questions, be a good listener, ask even better follow-up questions to hopefully uncover the best of the best, and then come out on stages from time to time and share what I've learned. So I'm always updating, I'm always trying to add to that. I'm always trying to bring as much value as possible based on the best stuff I'm learning from everybody else. So I also try to weave that into my own life, and I'll share some stories about how that's helped me too. Okay? A little bit more about me, because sometimes I've noticed people see a speaker and they think, well, yeah, it may be easy for you. You don't understand my life or what I'm going through. In my case, I am Miranda's husband and the father of Brooklyn, Ella, Addison, Peyton, and Charlie. That is 5 girls. 4 of them are currently teenagers. So in addition to all of this stuff, there is a lot of chaotic life happening at the same time. So it's not just a guy in monk mode trying to learn and then share. There is a real life happening at the same time that takes far, far higher precedent and is a higher priority, obviously, to me than any of the other stuff that I do in my life. But they are my why. They're why I do what I do, and I think it's important that you all know that. I think we all should have an important why in our life, why we get up to try to pursue excellence, to why we try to do great things, and this is what it is for me. In addition to that, I've written a few books, as Mike mentioned. In fact, The Score That Matters, the 3rd one, comes out next Tuesday. Weird timing on this gig, but it comes out next Tuesday. I think some of the books are here. My publisher sent some early copies for a few of you to get. And then my podcast is really the home base for everything. The Learning Leader Show, if you listen to podcasts, I think, and you care about leadership, you care about improvement, you care about personal development, I think you'd like it. And just scroll down and find the guest that intrigue you most and then take a listen. I think you'll enjoy that. Okay. I'm a big quote guy. I love quotes. I love hearing quotes from others. I love writing quotes. I'm just a big quote guy. And it's kind of, it's interesting when I saw that Bruce won that award because I was like, wow, this feels like some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is what he embodied and why he probably won that award. This guy who I get a sense is continuously learning and sharing and teaching on video and trying to help others. But I firmly believe that your ability to learn is going to determine your ability to lead. If you're not going to be focused as a learning leader on a daily basis, I firmly believe you're going to struggle. And this is one of the commonalities I found among leaders who sustain excellence over time, is that they are aggressively learning, trying to get better and better and better each day. I also think it's not necessarily about what we acquire along the way, whether it's possessions or even knowledge or accomplishments. It's really about the people we become in the process of acquiring those things. It's not necessarily the fact that you made it to the top of a mountain. It's the person you become along the way. I think that's really one of the cool parts about what we're doing here, trying to get better, right? We're focused this week on learning and on improving and getting better. There are probably urgent things you have to do in your day job that you are putting on hold to focus on the important things, which is bettering yourself and improvement, as well as collecting and coming together with other people. So there's a few things I'm going to share that I've picked up. This is the first one. To me, when it comes to people who have sustained excellence over time. Now, it was probably 7 years ago. I had a conversation with a leadership hero and mentor of mine, a guy named Jim Collins. And some of you probably know Jim Collins. He's written a lot of good books. One of them is called Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last, really an amazing guy. And I had been reaching out to Jim for years, trying to get a chance to record with him. And eventually I did. It's episode 216. It goes down as one of my all-time favorites. But if you listen to it, you'll notice I'm very nervous. I'm talking pretty fast. And when we were off air, I mentioned to him about the what I was trying to build from a business perspective and what I was doing and why I was doing it and how I was going about doing it. I was really going on and on. I was excited about what was happening. And Jim said, "Oh, calm down for a second. The single greatest determining factor in your long-term success or failure will be your who. Who are your friends? Who are your mentors? Who are you intentionally surrounding yourself with?" That's a key word. Not just you wander around, "Oh, they're in my life, they're in my life." And I realized at that point I had not done a very good job of intentionally cultivating my who. And so as I thought more about it, and I'm thinking like, who is my who is your who? This is something for you to think about, that are you just aimlessly going through life wondering, "Oh yeah, okay, they're cool, they're nice, they're fine," or are you intentionally going through your life, investing in relationships, because that's really what life is all about. And that's going to be the single greatest determining factor in your long-term success or failure, is who you are choosing to surround yourself with. So I kind of bucketed into three things, and I'd like you to do the same. I'd like you to think about this. You could write it down too if you want. Maybe this is a good journal entry for you after this conference is over. But for me, there's three buckets. Here's the first one. Who's ahead of you? In the video, they mentioned Bruce's that he got to study and was mentored by some great people, right? Not surprising, but that's a story of a lot of people that had sustained excellence over time, that they get to study under some amazing people. But who are the people who have done what you want to do, but more importantly, they've done it in a way in which you deeply admire? You really look up to their style, to the way they do it, with integrity, you have belief in them, with confidence. Right? Who are those people in your life that you can go to talk to learn from? And I want you to rate these levels of relationships. A level 5 relationship is you have regularly scheduled time to talk. You regularly are interacting with them, whether you meet with them in person, text, email, call, whatever it may be. That's a level 5 relationship. A level 1 is aspirational, okay? Meaning you have not met them yet and you would like to. And so an action point from this meeting, I hope, would be that you reach out to some of your level 1 relationships. You write them down. "Oh, I would love to meet with her. I'd love to meet with him, but I haven't yet for whatever reason. I'm going to. It's an action I'm going to take leaving this meeting." Okay? So ahead of you, done what you want to do. You deeply admire the way in which they do it. 5s, all the way down to 1. Okay? Let's write them down. Second one, who's beside you? And that's why I love these types of conferences. Because these types of relationships sometimes start at an event like this. These are people who you're walking side by side on a similar path, right? Similar ambitions, similar goals. And two rules for the people beside you. One, it's a no judgment zone. You can call them and say, God, I really messed this thing up. Really messed up. Can you help me out? Two, they are genuinely pumped for you when it goes well. They're excited, and you're excited for them. It goes both ways. Again, level 5, regularly scheduled time to talk. A level 1, aspirational. Maybe someone's caught your eye here, and like, ooh, I would like to meet them. I want to develop a relationship with them. So I think that could happen beside, okay? 1 to 5, write that down. Think about that later. Third is, who are you helping? Who is not as far along as you are, but maybe they want to be. And in some cases, this one's interesting because there are people in your life who are intimidated by your success. They are scared to approach you because of who you are or what you've done. So it's on us as leaders to proactively go approach them, right? To ask them for coffee, to meet with them, right? Again, rate these relationships from 5 to 1. Now, one of the reasons, or two of the reasons why I think these behind relationships are really important is, one, it's simply the right thing to do. It's the right thing to help other people. That's obvious. We know this. That's what we should be striving to do, is helping those who need some help. 2, though, is this works as a great mechanism for learning. Think about any time in your life when you are sharing something you've learned with somebody else, whether you're giving a presentation, you're meeting one-on-one with somebody, you're guest lecturing at a university. Any of those moments where you're going to give back to somebody who's probably a little bit further behind than you are, it's going to fully make sure that you're prepared and will cement some of that learning. So it does benefit the giver of the advice as well, not just the one receiving it. So again, rate those. 5, you already regularly meet with these people and talk to them. A 1 is aspirational. And this one's really important, is that you reach out to some of those ones behind you too, the ones especially that you view are maybe a little bit intimidated or a little bit scared to approach you. Okay? So this is, again, action to take from here. Write these down. Think about each of the relationships. And then anyone labeled as a 1 on your list, reach out to them. Some of the best emails I get are 6 months later after I give this part of a talk, whether it's one-on-one with somebody or it's in a situation like this. 6 months later is somebody says, hey, you know, I thought I was pretty good at that, but I actually took some action. I reached out to people that are those 1s in my life, and either I reconnected with an old mentor or I built a new relationship with somebody that I didn't previously have, and now it's changed my life for the better. The who is everything. It's your personal board of advisors that I think it's very critical that you get this one right, because that's why I put it first. That advice from Jim Collins is right, and I found it's had a transformational effect on my life by actively investing and being proactive when it comes to the relationships in my life. Okay. The second one. All right, this is when you're going to do a little bit of work, but I'm going to go first. I'll do the work first, then you're going to do some work, because we're going to share, we're going to learn about each other a little bit. This is a pretty big room to do this exercise in, but I think that might make it even more fun. So get ready to write, but I'll go first. Think of your ideas for this. I'm going to explain it, but think of your ideas for this. I think we have microphones here ready. Think of your ideas for this as I'm explaining mine. Maybe even jot some of your own notes, and then I'm going to look for some people to share. Okay. I believe that all effective leaders have a code. They have something they live by. They have an ethos. They have beliefs, and they try their best to live up to those beliefs, to that code, so that others are then inspired to follow them. And so this defining your ethos is an exercise I've done with one of my good friends named Brooke Cups, and we've been doing it for years now. We wrote about it in our most recent book, and I think it's important that everybody do this. I think you can do this for yourself as well as do it with teams that you lead. Okay, so I'll share my ethos, some of my beliefs and what they are and why they are, and then you guys are going to get a chance to share. I'll give you some time to take notes, and then we'll bring the mics out and you'll share, okay? So my ethos, the 3 images. And I like to use images because it brings these things to life, okay? We're trying to bring them to life. So think of your images as I'm sharing mine. Mine are the hawk, the edge, and the stairs. The hawk, the edge, and the stairs. I'll explain why. First is the hawk. So my last name is Hawk, and so growing up, people would actually gift my dad hawks that would sit on his desk. He had many of them in our home, spare bedroom, in his office. Literally like stuffed hawks. It was kind of weird, but I got kind of into the fact of studying the bird because of all of these gifts that I saw. And I noticed that there's some interesting things to learn about a hawk. And this is why, even though I'm not choosing it just because it's my name, although that does play a role, there's some things about them that I identify with that I think are important. So one, a hawk, what they do, for those of you that don't know, and I don't expect most of you to know, right? They're soaring birds, right? But what they're really good at is their eyesight is actually 8 times better than any human, right? I don't necessarily know how they judge that, but that's what the science says, 8 times better than any human. And so they're soaring, and they have to notice things. And I think from a leadership perspective, we need to be professional noticers. I need to be noticing what's going on. I need to be observant of what's happening. So I need to have my eyes wide open, looking for what's happening in the world of leadership and excellence and pursuing excellence, right? So identify this element of being a hawk. But then the second part is that once they identify something to go after, usually food in their case, some prey, once they identify that, then they aggressively attack and they give 100% commitment to that thing that they're going after. And for me, that's what I have to do. I have to be a professional noticer of things, see what's happening, have my eyes wide open, but then once I make a decision, once it's time to go, boom, we go with everything we got. Like that's what I have to do. And when I do that, when I make that commitment, things seem to go well. So right, they have that curiosity of looking around, of seeing what's happening, but then also that commitment when they make a decision. Second to me is the edge. So I think growth is all about being right at that edge of where you're comfortable or not comfortable. I think growth for me creates some sort of momentum. I have to regularly be on that edge, regularly be scaring myself, regularly be unsure if I can do that, regularly sign up for gigs with 850 people in the room to say, can you add value to their life? I don't know, but that's a great challenge I'm willing to sign up for, right? Regularly living on that edge, maybe almost stepping over it every once in a while just to see, because that's where growth happens. So the phrase pushing my edges is something I'm always thinking about, of what are you doing today to push your edges? And so I think of the edge. The edge is part of that ethos, that visual that brings this to life for me. And the third one are the stairs. So I'm at a volleyball tournament in Orlando, Florida a few years ago. For my daughter Ella plays club volleyball. And for those of you parents who have kids who play club volleyball, you know these tournaments are long. You're there all day. They're at giant convention centers. At least this big national AAU tournament in Orlando, Florida is one of them. And I noticed that as you're leaving the convention center where all the courts are to go up to where you can get food or leave the convention center, that there are these 2 sets of escalators, and then there's also this set of stairs. And every time I'd walk out to leave, there would never be anybody on the stairs. Always people. Now, these are people who are very tall, good-looking, athletic humans, and yet definitely have working legs, and yet none of them would use them when it comes to the stairs. I didn't realize the girls were playing and the parents were watching, but it still was interesting. So I did more research on this, spoke to a guy on my podcast named Michael Easter, who wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis, and he said there's actually science behind this. The fact that a long, long, long time ago, we were, as humans, in order to stay alive, we needed to conserve our energy, to either go out and hunt and get food for our family, or to run away from something else that was hunting us, like a saber-toothed tiger. This is literally still in our DNA. We're still wired to be lazy. We're wired to do this because it's what's kept us alive. It's what's kept us as a species. This is real stuff. In fact, when scientists have gone out and done research, and they look at areas where there are both stairs and escalators, and in fact, 98% of people take the escalator every single time, right? Because we're still wired to be lazy. And so the stairs, to me, are just one small little thing. It's not that hard. One small little thing for me to say, I'm going to take the stairs every time in order to fight that natural tendency to be lazy, to conserve energy. And so this is just, I don't mean it for everyone else has to take this one. This is just one for me, because I want to prepare myself to be able to deal with the inevitable adversity that will strike. And one small thing I can do is to work my leg muscles and walk upstairs, right? This is like in my mind saying, I'm preparing for that. I'm preparing. And so that's why the stairs are the third one for me, because I know it's not my natural tendency to want to take them. And so I'm going to intentionally choose to take them. So mine are the hawk, the edge, and the stairs. I've given you good amount of time to start thinking about yours, because that's what we're going to do next. I want you to walk out of here having actually done work. It's one thing to listen to somebody who's going to try to inspire you. It's another thing to have that and say, I actually did a little bit of work today, and I know myself a little bit better. And for those who share, I'm willing to stand up and share in front of a big group of people. Okay, so here's what it is. Select 3 images or symbols. It can be anything. Doesn't have to, like I chose mine that those are personal to me, but think about your code, your values, what's important to you. So select 3. Some people even choose to draw these if you want on your notepad, or just write them down and explain why, right? They can be meaningful image behind it, right? But it's all about developing a way of talking about your values within the context of a story, because that's much more interesting and entertaining than just saying, well, these are my values. Well, what if you say, well, here's my values, and here are why my values, and here are some images that represent my value. What I hope this does is, one, it helps you know yourself a little bit more, but I also hope it gives you something to do with your teams that you're leading, or even your friend groups, because I've done this with people who have worked together for more than 25 years, multiple times. And when we share our images, people go, what? I didn't know that about you. It's amazing how often that happens, even though people have been together for a long time, because for whatever reason, we don't always talk about this stuff. So today we're going to talk about this stuff. So I want to give you some time to do that now. We're going to play a little music, and then we're going to get the microphones out, and a few of you are going to share, and then we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming. Good, guys? Okay. Go ahead. Is anybody ready to go? Who wants to go first? The first one's always the toughest, but you'll get the most credit, at least from me. I don't know if that means anything. Who wants to go? Come on. There we go. Right here. Right behind you. Right behind you. Can you stand up, though, and say your name, too?
Dave Hughes, I'd like to talk to you later about my son in China who needs to find his way.
Okay. We can do that.
I write for Avionics News. I've been writing about aviation for 40 years. And so my first symbol would be an airplane. Aviation is the cause I serve that is bigger than me. Spyglass, find aspects that are the most important but not obvious. And some picture of technology be on the leading edge of what is new.
Wow, give him some claps. Good job. Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Who else is going? Who wants to go next? Oh, did you raise your hand or were you waving? You want to go? Okay. Who's going to go next before I start calling on people? Guys? I don't want to just pick on the... Go ahead, back there, right back there. I like these guys in the back. Go on. Say your name. Stand up, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Gene Velasquez. My 3 symbols, the first one was the worm. Humility and understanding how I have to hide hard it is to hide against my willingness to be self-righteous, to think I know everything. The second is clouds. The clouds are so inspirational. They build up imagination. What you can see in a cloud is only limited by my mind. And then lastly is the cross, is to know that, I'm not alone. I got the best leader and partner a person could ask for.
Wow. All right. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get a couple more. Who else wants to go? I'm going to call on Dave and Mike. If they're not, nobody else going, you guys ready to go? You want to go, Dave? Okay, go ahead.
Ryan warned me he was going to call on me. So if I had to use pictures, my first one is my family. And it's hard to do a picture just of your family because I consider I have 2 different types of family. My family, of course, that I've been put on this earth to take care of and to grow. And then there's the work family that goes along with that. So I'd have a picture of my family and work family. Second, and I introduced Ryan to Mike to be the keynote because you inspire me from your work that you do on the pursuit of excellence with leadership. And I've always strived to lead by service. So somehow a picture that was associated with service, I think, would be the second one. And then I love your cliff, because as soon as you're done, I get to go stand on the stage and stand at the edge of the cliff as well in front of 850 people. And I've tried to continue to push myself to the edge and to help grow personally and professionally. So those would be the three for me.
All right, Dave. Love it. Thank you. Thank you. That's so good, especially for a first draft. Mike, you want to do it? You want to bring us home? Yeah. All right.
I've got, I struggle with the third one.
Okay.
I thought of it when you said it, and actually yours kind of led me to it. So the first one's motorcycle. Because of the attention, the safety, the focus, the commitment, the joy, the thrill that it gives you, the outlet for stress relief, et cetera, et cetera. And those of you who ride know it's a lot different than four wheels. So first one was motorcycle, keeps you on the edge. Second one was airplane, same as the other gentleman. That has a lot of meaning. It's family, it's travel, it's work. And I love the statement that a mile of runway takes you a lot further than a mile of road.
Oh.
So that one. And then finally sports, and I couldn't think of the image, but you talked about your daughters playing volleyball.
Yep.
Same thing. A lot of my social life is tied to the fact that we had kids sports, and that's coming to an end actually, but I look back on that and think a lot of my fun over the last 20 some years is tied to the sports and that community and connecting and going to the club events and college sports and whatnot. So I don't know if that has anything to do with an ethos. It's just, it ties back to family and friends.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, man. So good. Thank you guys for sharing. I think it's, I just want you to think about this. Those are amazing first drafts, and you got like 3 minutes to think of them. But to me, I found it to be a really cool exercise to do with people that you care about, whether it's your work family, as Dave mentioned, or your family at home, or your friends, is to identify these objects, these images that are important to you that kind of exemplify your code. I have known Dave for 3-4 years. We've talked, I don't know how many times, and now I've learned something new, right? Same with Mike, same with everyone who shared. So I think it's worth it to do exercises like this, one, because it forces you to get the thoughts out of your head onto the page. This is why I like writing books. They force you to do that. But it also then shares more of you with others. Say, this is what I'm about, right? You now know more about your president and CEO than you did 5 minutes ago, because he shared some things about his family, about club sports, right? About what's important to him, about why the motorcycle, like, oh, I never thought of a motorcycle that way, right? Okay, interesting. So to me, that's why this is one of the most cool and fun exercises to do, first for yourself and then for your team. Okay, so this goes so well with what Bill talked about at the very beginning, this idea of being a lifelong learner. This quote comes from the late, great Charlie Munger, when he was talking about the difference between people who sustain excellence over time and the ones who don't, right? I constantly see people in life who are not the smartest, not even the most diligent or the hardest workers, but they're learning machines. They go to bed a little bit wiser than they were when they woke up. I love prompts, just like I love quotes. And a prompt I can ask myself, and that you could ask yourself at the end of each day is, what did I do today to be a little bit wiser going to bed than I was when I woke up? What did I do today to be a little bit wiser going to bed than I was when I woke up? And if you can answer in the affirmative day after day after day, and you stack those days and watch that compound effect happen as you try to be a learning machine, I am betting on you. I'm placing my chips, I'm making a bet on somebody like that versus the one who is not necessarily intentional but just tries to get through the day, isn't intentionally learning, isn't trying to get better, right? That one, I'm worried about. The one, though, who makes this, has a clear intention and asks themselves this question, this prompt, I like your odds of things going well. And so I think as a group, as a whole, whether it's here as this organization, as a conference, or you take it back to your companies where you're working, where you're leading, if learning and development is a checking the box exercise for you, I'm not probably betting on a company like that. But if learning and development is something that's just embedded in your company's ethos, in the way that you operate, and it's just a part of your default setting that learning and development happens, we're intentional about it, I'm betting on that company. And the ones that seem to sustain excellence over time, learning and development is embedded as a part of the fabric of their company, not just, oh my gosh, we haven't done anything in a long time, we got to check this box. Again, as a part of all of these interviews, I've talked to a ton of CEOs of companies, people who have led, whether they're leading special forces operators, big-time companies, sports teams, whatever it may be. The ones that learning and development are a regular part of what they do, it's just part of their fabric, those are the ones who seem to go like that versus the ones who just check the box every once in a while. And so, to me, like I create like a perfect day, right? And everything I'm saying, by the way, I've learned and borrowed from other people and then implemented it into my life. So nothing in the world is necessarily original. It's just what we can take from it to implement into our lives. So for me, like a perfect day is a flywheel, right? And I'm trying to do this every single day. First part of the day that I want to do is I need to fuel my intake engine. This is how I'm trying to be a learning machine. You could steal this, you could create your own, whatever it may be, but I urge you to think about how you can become a learning machine. So I'm fueling my intake engine. That's the first part. Reading books, listening to podcasts, watching TED Talks, interviewing people who are far wiser than me. That's fueling that intake engine, right? But I can't just be a learner, I also have to be a doer. I have to take what I'm learning and put it into action, right? So I need to have the mind of an experimenter. I need to, if my mentor just gave me some great advice fueling that intake engine, I need to actually put it into play. That's why so many of the things that I'm doing are not just about like, hey, listen to me talk for a while and then go on to your next meeting. It's like, no, actually do this stuff, right? Experiment with what I'm talking about, and I think that will give you a chance to create this type of trajectory, right? So you got to test it out. You got to experiment. Right? You have to take what you're learning and put it into play. But then third, and it's the step a lot of us skip, including me at points, is pause, step back, reflect. What worked? What didn't work? What should I keep doing? What should I start doing? What should I stop doing? Right? That reflective phase is when so many of us just race right past it because we got too many things going on. But again, the leaders who are sustaining excellence over time are really good about this, creating silence in their days, reflection, thinking. So important. Analyzing your experiments of what worked and what didn't, what you should start doing, what you should stop doing, what should you keep doing, right? That part is really important. And then if you really want to cement your learning, as I mentioned in the behind part of when your who, is teach it to somebody else. Again, think about any time you've put yourself in the position of being a teacher. That's when so much of the learning takes place. There's many different ways to teach. You could get up on a stage and share. You could talk one-on-one with somebody else. You could write it down, which I think is one of the best ways. Again, you don't fully know how unclear you are about something until you force yourself to write about it. And that is going away. It seems like there's less and less of that happening. So developing that skill of being able to clearly get the words out of your head onto the page, super valuable. Excellent leaders that I've spoken to on my podcast and have in my life, they're really good at this. So, fuel the intake engine, experiment with what you're learning, take a step back and reflect, teach it to somebody else, and the flywheel spins on and on and on. And when you intentionally do this, and you intentionally go to bed a little bit wiser than you were when you woke up, those days compound, and you are guaranteeing yourself will be better next year at this conference, right? Next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now. One of the things I share with people I work with, whether they're clients of mine or people I'm advising or leadership teams that they ask me to come in and advise and coach, and I believe in humility. However, this is something else I very much believe in. I'll say the good news is today is the worst I'm ever going to be. And I'm very intentional about that because next week I'm recording with 3 people who are far wiser than me. I'm reading this book. I'm gonna meet with this mentor. And even next week, I'm going to be in a much better position to help your leaders, to help your team than I am right now. Same way with this. Today should be the worst talk I ever give, at least moving forward, if I'm doing it right. Now, I still want it to be excellent, and I still care deeply about it being really good to add value to your life. But if you saw me in a month from now or a year from now, it should be a lot better. And acting this way, being a learning machine, helps guarantee that that happened. And you could do the exact same thing for whatever it is you're most curious about and interested in your own life. So the question, right, is like I've repeated it 5 or 6 times, something to think about. What are you doing right now to be a little bit wiser? Hopefully this is part of it. What are you doing right now to be a little bit wiser going to bed than you were when you woke up? And think about this every single day. This is a very simple prompt, right? And you could take 30 seconds, a couple minutes each night just jotting down some things in your head and look back over the course of 6 months, over a year, like, wow, I've been much more intentional about this. I am much better off than I was before I started this little exercise of having a prompt before I go to bed. Okay, number 4, there's 5 total. So here's 4, and then we'll get 5. We'll rock and roll. So I got promoted from individual contributor, as Mike mentioned in the intro, the individual sales rep, to managing my own team for the first time. I was 26. I was not good. I had no idea what I was doing. And I met with a mentor of mine named Tom Ogburn. He said, hey, congratulations. You now never get to be energy neutral. And I said, Tom, I have no idea what that means. What are you talking about? And he said, as the leader, you're either adding energy to the space or you're taking it away. When you're just following or you're not leading, you don't bear that responsibility, but the leaders do. They're watching you. They're paying close attention to you. We as leaders are the emotional thermostats for our teams, whether that's at home or that's at work. And so we get this awesome responsibility and the power that comes with leading, which I want us to use that power for good, and that is to add energy to the space. As leaders, if you choose to lead, you no longer get to be energy neutral. Excellent leaders, they just can't do that, right? You see that dial. We are turning it up or down. We either are giving energy or taking it away. This is another intentional thing for each of you to think about before you enter any space, whether it's on a Zoom or a Teams call or it's into an actual location with your people. Stop for like a couple seconds and say, am I going to add energy to this space? Am I going to lift these people up? Or am I going to be a drain? Am I going to be the person they go, oh no, and roll their eyes and quietly say, I don't like that person, or they don't add to our team? Are we going to be a value-added resource or be a person who's constantly taking from that energy instead of lifting it up? And I think the best leaders, the ones who sustain excellence over time, are really good about adding energy to the space. And there's this great sign I saw at this Indiana University health system that I think kind of embodies this really well, right? Please take responsibility, right? This is an ownership thing. Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into the space. Your words matter. Your behaviors matter. Take a slow, deep breath and make sure your energy is in check before entering. Thank you. Right? Again, just a little intentional action as you enter the room, whether it's virtual or in person. Am I going to add to them or take away? Because I no longer get the benefit of being energy neutral because I love this responsibility of leading people. I love the chance to impact people in a positive way. It's not going to happen if I'm not intentional, though. It may happen a little bit from time to time, right, just by accident. But if you want to sustain it over time, again, creating this type of trajectory, it doesn't happen just wandering around hoping for the best and not really thinking about it. The ones who do it over time are very thoughtful and intentional with how they do it. Okay, right? This is another prompt to think about it in the morning before you go to work or before you're going to meet with anybody. How will I purposely bring positive energy to my colleagues each day? What am I going to do today? This is the theme of this entire talk. Is about being thoughtful and intentional. An absolute commonality among leaders who sustain excellence over time. Very thoughtful and very intentional. Nothing's really by accident, right? They live on purpose. And to me, that's what I've learned it from so many others who are far, far, far ahead of me, that it's one of the number one things I try to share when I get a chance to teach, is that's what these people do. They're just so thoughtful and intentional, and everything is on purpose, and living that way gives them the greatest chance to positively impact other people, which is what most leaders want to do. Okay, I have one more story before Dave goes, and this was a personal one that was kind of cool to me. So I gave this great venue in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I don't know if any of you have been there, but if not, you should go. It's beautiful. Yep, we got some people who've been. It's an amazing place. So I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I give a talk, and I wasn't going to fly home until much later in the day, like a red-eye situation. So I had the entire day to do whatever I wanted. And I thought, well, I'm in this beautiful location. I should go swim in Lake Coeur d'Alene. And I noticed as I was swimming that there's this mountain right next to Lake Coeur d'Alene. And so I go out for a hike. It's not a crazy big mountain, but it's a mountain. I go out there and I stop by the number 12. It's the number I wore when I played quarterback in college. And so I stop and take a picture. You see the water behind me. You see some other mountains. You see the greenery right there. And then as I keep walking to go up this mountain, I come to this intersection, right? This location that says I have two different options. I could either go on the main loop trail, which again goes around the mountain. Great, beautiful walk. Highly encouraged if you happen to be on this mountain, you do it. Or I could go to the summit. I could go to the top of this mountain. And so I had all day, and I thought, I'd like to check out both. Let's see what they look like. And so I want to ask you, I took these pictures on my phone, what you think which one is which, okay? So I go down both trails, and this is the first one I choose. What do you think this one is? Main loop, right? You look at it, and it looks very comfortable. You can walk probably 2 to 3 people wide around this main loop. It is beautiful, right? You're in nature. Again, I highly recommend walking in nature by yourself or with people, right? But the main loop is really nice and cozy, and it's definitely well worn. Lots of people have been on this main loop trail. What do you think this one is? Yeah, I mean, that's usually the reaction. It's the people think about going to the summit, and you can tell they think about this because there's a few steps of a path have been created, just a couple, right? They take a few steps up that path, and they go, yeah, it's not worth it to walk through that mess. I'm turning around. So there's a little bit of a worn path for a few steps, and then they go the other way. And it was like this perfect metaphor for life. It goes along with my ethos, goes along with a lot of the commonalities of leaders who have sustained excellence over time that I've interviewed and talked to and met with, is that the ones who are achieving big things, the ones who sustain excellence, the ones who are leading people, who are influencing people, who are inspiring people, they choose that path. And they're willing to do what others want to accomplish, what others can't, and then they get views like this. But it's not necessarily even about this view. It's about the person you become along the way. Right? The character you develop through going through stuff like this. Right? Yes, it is nice to get this, to get up to the top. Right? But really, to me, it's about looking and seeking opportunities. That's what I think, that opportunities like this to condition myself to take the stairs, to do the hard things, to prepare myself for the inevitable adversity that will strike. That's one of the few things that we know is going to happen. There are people in this room right now dealing with some real hard stuff, much harder than climbing up stairs or a mountain, right? And so I want us all to be super prepared and conditioned to handle those situations as best we can. Because as you know, from a leadership perspective, another one of the only guarantees in leadership is that stuff goes wrong all the time. All the time. And it's usually brought up to you. Like, I wonder how many calls or emails Mike gets a day of things going wrong. How many? Probably a lot, right? Most CEOs I talk to, that's like their whole job. And I think from a leadership perspective, that's the way it goes. And so I want us to be as conditioned as possible, and this never ends, by the way, as conditioned as possible to best handle those situations so that you become the type of person that gets here regularly And it's not even necessarily about getting there, it's about conditioning yourself and the type of person you need to be in order to get here. And that's by intentionally choosing to do the hard things on a regular basis so you're better conditioned to deal with whatever challenges you're going to face, because we know for certain that they're going to come up. So, what path will you choose is really the question. I've had people say, hey man, I'm going to stick to that main loop all life, and I'm 75 years old and it's served me well so far. That's fine. That's not for me, right? But I get it if people choose that one. The ones who I've found who have made a difference, who have impacted people, typically choose the Summit Trail, typically choose to go that route. They condition themselves, they prepare themselves to get better and better and better each day, so that when those moments happen, they're, one, prepared to take advantage of opportunities in their life, and they can deal with the inevitable adversities are definitely going to strike. Okay, here are the 5, just to give you a quick reminder. Who is your who? That's ahead, beside, behind. Rate those relationships. A level 5 is you regularly meet and talk. A 1 is aspirational in all 3 of those buckets. Take action on that, especially for the ones, right? Reach out to them, give them a call, send them a note, right? Work to get together with them. And I think that would be amazing, and hopefully some of that happens throughout the course of this conference. Defining your ethos, we got some amazing shares. These are your first drafts. I would urge you to get past your first draft to a second draft, something you feel comfortable to share with the important people in your life, your team at home or your team at work. Do this exercise with them. I promise you will learn something, and they will learn something about you. 3, right, going to bed a little bit wiser than you were when you woke up. That's what learning machines do. Become a learning machine. When you choose to lead, you no longer get the luxury of being energy neutral. You're either adding to the space or you're taking it from the room. We want to be people who add value, who add energy, but to do this, we got to be very intentional. And then the path less traveled, right? Main loop or the summit. In my experience, and I think many others have said this too, the ones who are going for the summit typically are the ones who are better prepared to make the most of the opportunities they get in their life, as well as deal with the hardship that will strike. And that's one of the few guarantees that we have, is we know that stuff's going to happen. How can I condition myself to be best prepared to handle those situations? I am so grateful for your time. My name is Ryan Hawk, host of the Learning Leaders Show, author of Welcome to Management, The Pursuit of Excellence, and now The Score That Matters. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 67th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Grapevine, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors: